the next phase of your journey on starting to use AI tools is you go totally black boxing and start vibe coding. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Because you're like, it's right.
and I did this. Okay. And I'm like, oh, it's just crushing it. It's doing a great job. And I'm running and I'm not really looking at the code anymore. And then one day you look at the code and you go, oh my goodness. It's like it's written by like 30 different people, all with different conventions.
Start it up. Let's get it rolling. Big ideas, money folding. Hustle smart, dream so wild. Turn that grind into a joyride.
So what I want to talk about today is I was reading an article on Medium, and it was written by a company called Agoda Engineering, which I haven't heard of.
Seems pretty credible, but keep going.
Yeah, I know. But it's a major travel tech company. And they, you know how sometimes you have this inkling about things in the back of your mind, and then you read something, you're like, holy smokes, like they put their finger right on the thing that I was kind of mulling on in the back of my mind.
Okay.
And did a really good job of explaining exactly it. And normally this happens to me when I read like HBR or something like that. There's somebody who's done a ton of research on this weird thing. This time it was just a Medium article by this engineering firm. And apparently they're a major travel tech company.
You already got that part.
Yeah. So
What the hell do they do?
Here's kind of the crux of this thing is that, so AI coding tools, you're familiar.
Yep.
I use Claude Code.
Yep.
This is a whole thing. Actually, I heard that.
I think that's the best one, isn't it?
I heard that Cursor, actually, they don't have their own LLM. They're just using Moonshot AI.
Nice.
The Chinese
My
one.
favorite.
Our favorite
one.
Chinese LLM.
You got a lot of good responses to that reel. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't know if we had some comments on YouTube, people be like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, I know. Anyway.
I feel like we should have a segment on this show where we just pitch stupid business ideas.
I think it's a totally different pod.
that have like an angle that might actually
Like,
work.
it's like, you know that guy who does useless inventions on YouTube? It's like, you know, like windshield wipers for your glasses and stuff. like I feel like it's kind of in that category. It's just like, it's interesting how well thought out it can be for something that's completely bogus. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, anyways, we'll think about that.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's the thing: we're as coders, we are way faster. We're like 10 times faster than we were now that we can use AI tools to help us code and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
But so 10x increase in software development capacity. Okay, we're pumping out 10 times
good.
more code. But what's weird is that the number of like new features or new products being released is only marginally higher than it was before.
Okay.
So wouldn't you
It
think?
seems kind of weird. It doesn't match. Those don't line up. Right?
Yeah. So apparently Fred Brooks, I don't know who that is.
Is that a person or like a research agency?
Let's go with person.
Freddie, as he likes to be known.
He warned about this problem exactly 40 years ago in a book called No Silver Bullet. And what he
40
identified,
years ago?
Yeah, 40 years ago, 1986. And so the thing is that coding is only a small part of the software development lifecycle. So when you think of like from I want to write software to people are using the software, the coding part is only a small piece of that assembly
makes
line.
sense to me for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's part
So
of it.
building the product and getting people to use the product are actually like they're opposite ends of the like product development or like a company's process.
Yeah, the part that we've really improved the performance on is only a small part of it, I guess, is the identification that
Like based on this data. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'm with you.
So bottom line is we've sped up coding by like 10 times faster, but we've only
not
increased
actually
shipping
produced.
by about 10%.
Right.
Okay. Anyways, it's interesting to, even a lot of the creator of Claude Code, Boris Cherny, he's like the number of commits that he's doing per month himself on the software for Claude Code, because he uses Claude Code, obviously he's building Claude Code.
Weird.
Is astronomical. He's done like 259 pull requests in a single month, 497 commits, 40,000 lines of code added, 38,000 lines removed in a month.
Wow.
And he never opened
Whoa.
an IDE. He never opened a development environment. He did it all by just talking to Claude.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, whatever. Like, let's just assume that's all mostly true.
Right.
95% true. Okay.
So Linus Torvalds, which is the guy who started Linux.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's
Adds
called
up.
Linux.
Yeah.
But it was based on Unix. So Linus.
Yeah, whatever. That's fine.
Anyways, whatever.
No one cares.
So recently, he even let Google's AI coding tool write code and commit it to their code base for the first time. So there are two bottlenecks that Agoda identifies in this article, and I think they're bang on. So the first one is the specification gap. Okay, so specifying what the code has to do. So vague requirements lead to perfectly coded but incorrect features.
Makes sense. If you know well enough aligned with the customer, and then you end up building something they don't actually want or need.
If you've ever used an AI coding tool, you know exactly what we're talking about.
What do you mean?
If you put a bad prompt in, the AI coding tool will perfectly code the bad feature.
Makes sense. Okay.
So I'm using feature.
So like feature glut kind of like idea, like you just have like too many features for something, or is it that it literally doesn't do what the person wants it, like the end user wants?
Poorly described, poorly.
I mean, like
prompted.
that is. I actually feel like for a SaaS company, that is a huge, never-ending problem.
Yeah.
Like the customer will come to you and say, "I want this," but they don't actually always. Like sometimes they're not bad. It depends on the customer, but most of the time, I'd say like 75% of the time. I'm just guessing. Yeah. They will come to you with kind of like a crazy interpretation of what they wanted to do. And then you show them that thing doing exactly that. And they'll be like, oh, I don't want it to do like quite like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, but why? And that's why you have the MVP process, the build, measure, learn, because the whole concept is you can't just like build it and it will work instantly. It's a process of improving till you actually get to what the user actually wants, actually needs with that product.
And you're right. That is so time consuming to get it out of the user what they want. If the developer,
I think it's sorry to interrupt you, but I think one of the most like dangerous things you can do as a software developer is it sounds ridiculous, but is to take the customer at their word.
Yeah.
You actually need to really put some sort of like real basic MVP in front of them. I mean, we talked about MVP a million times, but then go through that process, and that's where you'll actually tease out the learning.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second place that there are bottlenecks is on the other end, which is the review bottleneck. So you get 40,000 lines of code given to you by an AI programming model, and it does that in 10 or 15 minutes, and you've got to review it all. You've got to go test all that. You've got to go try all that.
Why can't the AI test it?
Well, it does.
But you just want a human element in there.
It's not necessarily like a software bug, like it's a runtime error or something like that. It's more like, does it do the thing it's supposed to do?
Right.
Like, does it implement the feature properly? So there's this whole, and that is very time consuming to make sure every single way that piece of software, every possible input, every possible output is actually meeting the specifications. So that review piece. So anyway, so there's kind of like three different stances on the way you can kind of approach this. So white box, is kind of like the old school way of doing it. You review every line, which is a really safe way to do it. You've checked absolutely everything that AI gave you, but it doesn't scale. It is super slow. It is super time consuming. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
There's black box, which is also
just send it.
Also known as vibe coding.
Yeah. Good luck, God bless.
Where you just send it, you just assume that it works, and off you go. And then there's sort of like in the middle, the gray box, where you give clearer specs up front and you do a really strong verification after. So really trying to optimize the before and after, so that you're getting the most out of your AI stuff, but you're also still like scalable. Okay. So I think I land in that gray box area. Hopefully. I definitely don't trust it enough to do the vibe coding approach, and I definitely don't have the time to do the white box.
Hang on. Before you keep going into the notes, I got some questions here.
All right.
Because you're just ripping, and
I am ripping, but I'm going to get into some questions.
I'm not comfortable with the fact that I'm not talking enough right now. So let me just ask you a question really quick.
Sure.
So there's this argument that you're a lot more productive. You're generating a lot more code.
Yeah.
Okay. But then the issue is around output, and you're saying there's bottlenecks. So there's these bottlenecks here that you're just describing.
Yep.
Can I argue that there's another bottleneck?
Okay.
That is something that has nothing to do with AI or anything else.
Okay.
Developers are afraid to launch code.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So you're generating, let's just say in a normal environment, you're generating, like how many pull requests would you do? Let's say you do 50 pull requests in a month. Okay.
Yep.
And then you get AI working for you and you're doing 150 pull requests. You are already so anxious about 50 changes.
Yeah.
Now you're doing a lot more changes, a lot more quickly.
Yeah.
And it's 3 times as big.
Yeah.
So you're effing terrified, proportionally as they're terrified. Yeah. As an increase, if there's a terrification scale, which is a word I've now coined.
I invented it.
Yes, I did that. Patent pending. I know it's not a patent, but it's trademark. Anyway, but that, do you know what I mean though? Like I think that there's a lot more anxiety too. Like there's already a base level of anxiety for developers to launch code because it's their neck on the line. And then if it doesn't work out, they're going to hear from the customer. And so now you're amplifying that as well. So I think part of this is like there's an increased need for quality control, which you're alluding to, but also just like what do we try to avoid doing all the time at AppArmor, which was the big bang.
Yeah.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
and I am terrified of launching code because
Thank you.
There's actually, I feel like I've talked to other software developers and you're kind of like, there's this beautiful, I don't know, like nirvana of happiness that developers have. And it's like when you're done coding, but you haven't done in your mind, but you haven't launched it yet and nobody's used it yet. You're just in this mode where in your mind, everything's perfect. Everything's going to work. It's awesome. It's great.
Well, like
it's amazing.
You're like, I've checked everything. So then, certainly this will work.
Yeah. And then 2 minutes after you launch that code, somebody finds a problem and you're back out of nirvana and you're back into your hell.
Sometimes it's not even a problem though, too. Sometimes they're just like, why doesn't it do this?
Yeah.
And you're like, ah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like you missed a specification. So there's back to the
back to the drawing board.
Right?
Or you think about how you could improve. Even if you got all those specs, you'll see opportunities for improvement probably within a couple of days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's crushing too.
Yeah.
You show it to somebody and they're like, oh, it's great. It does all that stuff.
But it's this one thing I need
other thing it
for
really
it to
should
do.
Great.
And you're like, oh man. Yeah, we used to have that a lot.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is
that's feature creep, I guess.
Yeah. When you've launched code, the other piece too is that if it's something that fundamentally changes your data model, the way you're storing data,
right,
and you have to go back, and then there's a data migration involved.
Yeah, remember
you want to cry.
Remember with AppArmor, we like when we first launched all those the app, like the concept behind the app was basically total anonymity.
Yeah,
and then we got to a point where our customers were like, no, it has to integrate with the single sign-on at the school. So if you're a student going to the school, you start basically at some point at least you log into the app,
right,
and then it was like, holy shit, like how do we do this? Because we had totally architectured the app differently.
Yeah.
And you figured it out and all that good kind of stuff. You know, for the right amount of money, you can figure out almost any problem.
Yeah. It was a lot of work though. It was
short
a lot of
space travel.
If we had known that in advance, it would have been easy to build it from day one.
Yep.
And it would have been a whole lot easier, but it wasn't a requirement for our first 15
in
customers
fact,
didn't even want it.
Yeah, they explicitly did not want the data.
Exactly. Yeah. So, all right. So my last point on this, and then I'm going to just let you rip, is I think that the article said this, and I totally agree, is that, the software developer's role is really shifting from being like the implementer, like fingers on keyboards, to being more like the solution architect, understanding the requirements and translating that to prompts and, like that sort of stuff. Are you thinking of like that Office Space movie where the guy goes,
why can't he's like, oh, I take the specs from the engineers, from the customers and take it to the engineers. Well, why can't the engineers talk directly to the customers? I'm a people person. Just freaks out.
But can I say that when I talk to people about software, there are ways that you build software, and there are things you got to kind of look out for. And I think I'm fortunate because I've had a lot of experience, and I can kind think head off issues.
I think it's one of your biggest strengths.
Yeah,
I'm happy to say this on air.
So I'm also a people person, but.
Well, no, what it is you're good at finding how the user will get themselves into trouble.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of also see the direction that a user is going to go with the platform.
Yeah.
And I think those are both super valuable because a lot of the time you get developers who just build to spec.
Yeah.
So this is weird. You do feature creep yourself, but you do it in such a way, I believe, having seen you do this for over a decade, that it does take us longer to launch sometimes, but in the longer run, it saves us a lot of time.
Yeah, it's like, okay, they're asking for this
most of the time. You don't always hit home runs, but most of the time.
Yeah, like they're asking
for get too high
for this feature, but like I know that the reason they're asking for that feature is because later they're going to want to do.
Yeah, what's the deeper meaning behind the ask?
Yeah,
right. Definitely, like getting good at that is a huge part of the business.
Yeah, if it I know a lot of the. We hired a lot of developers at a school, and it takes a while to learn that skill, and it takes some lumps. Actually, it takes some failures, some setbacks to actually really learn that lesson. Yeah. So, and I've had those, I've made those mistakes, so I try not to repeat the same mistake multiple times. Okay, So, all right. So flip this on end. You're the CEO of a company now, and you're looking at staffing levels, all that sort of stuff. How do you, now that you know this information, how do you act as a CEO to leverage this new knowledge?
Leverage that we're making more code, but not launching more stuff.
Yeah. Like what's your direction to your coding team? What are you saying? Hey, we used to go and write a ton of code and we would do the specifications, that sort of stuff. We have this way to do the coding part super fast. Okay. You're going to have resistance from developers who don't trust the AI, that, that kind of stuff that you're going to have to deal with. I think that it's a gradual thing, but I'm becoming more comfortable with it.
Right.
But I think that the skill set, how do you get your developers who've traditionally been just the ones focused on the actual development stuff to be more involved in that specification side and that review side?
This is a pretty big change management problem.
Yeah.
You will lose people trying to do this, because basically what's happening in my mind is, just putting my like HR/CEO hat on, is you're effectively changing the roles that the developers work in. So traditionally a developer put a bunch of them in a room together, have them work on a big problem. They build lots of code, they have some sort of output. We evaluate that output and we continue to iterate and improve. Whereas in this context, it's more like, hey, we still have the code happening. A lot of it's being automated. So like on the one hand, that probably means fewer of them.
Yeah.
The second thing is that it probably implies that, so if they're going to have more direct interaction with customers, there are going to be people who are just not suited for that.
Yeah.
Like there are some, because they didn't sign up for that though either. Like that's not their fault necessarily, but now their role would be shifting to have more direct interaction with customers, which is a little dangerous.
Yeah.
But because
I'm thinking of a couple of developers we employed that may not have been super comfortable with
you would probably still need a buffer on that call. Like I would still have somebody who's like an account lead, or maybe a non-coding sort of like implementation
people person.
Maybe. Yeah. I think they're not really about being people persons. They're about being, they're about knowing what is valuable for the company to act on and what isn't.
Right.
And what is realistic to achieve and what's not, based on customer expectations. This is challenging because I think it's some mix of like, what does the salesperson, the account manager, the customer success person know? What does the technical person, so this would be your solutions architect. And then if you're blurring the line between that person and the developer, that becomes complicated. But I would say usually you'd have the third person be the developer on the call.
Right.
So in this case, it's like either the solutions architect or the developer doesn't really need to be there. I think that what it kind of implies, at least for the company, is a different kind of technical expertise that's about reviewing code.
Yeah.
And also about pushing the implementation of the new code we make. Like we're not making code for the sake of making code.
Right.
Right. We're doing this because we're trying to move the business forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think there's this is a fundamentally different role.
Yeah.
I think you would have a really big challenge with your existing development staff.
Yeah.
I actually think what you'd probably do is, assuming you were emotionless, is you would let go of a percentage of your developer staff, lower performers, based on some sort of hopefully objective criteria, or maybe they're not a good culture fit, whatever. And then you would be looking to add more people in kind of this implementation oversight role.
Yeah. This is tough because it's a change to the job that they're doing.
Right. That's why it's like not fair to them. Right.
Yeah.
So like, it's not their fault that this is happening, but it is.
Yeah.
And the business needs are changing because of changing technology.
Yeah. Can I share an observation that I had? So we talked about the white box, the black box, and the gray box, kind of approaches. And I think that there's kind of like a journey that developers go on where they dabble in all of those, to figure out what their sweet spot is.
You mean like without AI, just like in general? Like
no, as they adopt AI tools to help them code and that sort of stuff. So for instance, like when I started using AI tools, I was totally in the white box category where I didn't really trust it. I was not letting it do anything.
Right.
I was having it do very specific tasks, and I was looking at it very carefully. I was highly scrutinizing it, but I wasn't really getting the benefit.
Which I think is kind of wise though to start.
Yeah. So then I had a moment where I was like, well, like
it
almost
seems
all the time,
good.
it seems good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then
I totally know what you're talking about.
Then you go.
I don't think this is just code, by the way. I think this is just use of AI.
It might be. Yeah. So then I think the next phase of your journey on starting to use AI tools is you go totally black box and you start vibe coding.
Yeah.
And then
Because you're like, it's right.
and I did this. Okay. And I'm like, oh, it's just crushing it. It's doing a great job. And I'm running and I'm not really looking at the code anymore. And then one day you look at the code and you go, oh my goodness. It's like it's written by like 30 different people, all with different conventions. It looks the same on the front end, but on the back end, the conventions.
It's like unsupportable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is like heavy.
That's always the nuance of code is like, how easily can you support it?
Yeah, exactly. So then I think for me, I settled back into kind of like a gray box area where I said, okay, I want to clean up this code base. I'm going to show it exactly what I want, like the pattern. And then I'm going to say, so in my situation, it had done a ton of UI stuff that was all like one-off. There was no modularity. It was not dry, or don't repeat yourself is the term that's used a lot in software. So it was really heavy, overly written code that was not optimal or efficient. Okay. So I said, hey, we need to build reusable pieces of code here. Okay. Especially for UI stuff. So built out a couple of those manually. And then I showed them to the AI and I said, this is the pattern. This is the template that we want to be using. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I had it implement those with me, and it was okay sometimes, but it also really messed up sometimes.
Right.
And I had to actually manually clean it up myself. So there's kind of like, I think you go through this journey where you're like, white box, you don't trust it. Then you're like, oh, it's fine. I'll just go with whatever it says. And then you realize it's maybe not as good as you'd hoped or thought, or as optimal as you'd hoped in your thought. And then you settle back into sort of the gray box area.
Yeah.
And maybe you're right.
I see that in the stuff I do all the time too. I'm not coding, but almost any problem I take on with AI now is kind of this, like, I know it can help me get 80%, and then I'm deeply skeptical throughout the process. And I can tell now when it's like winding itself up.
Yeah.
When it's like, oh no, it's lost. Like,
yeah.
And sometimes I call it out. I'm like, hey, by the way, you're totally full of shit right now. Yeah. Like, I'll just say that to you, and it'll be like, yeah, you're right. And you're like, well, then why are you telling me this?
Yeah.
Or like, my favorite is like, you'll go through something and you'll say, well, this happened. What do you think? And you're going back and forth. And then it's like, well, I suggest you do this, because it always wants to give you a suggestion that also ends up in you using more credits.
Right.
So, and so then I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, well, you realize though, you just contradicted yourself earlier.
Yeah.
And it goes, you're right about that, and
yeah.
So there is something to be said here about, I don't know. I think it's just a healthy degree of critical thinking.
Yeah.
It does remove a lot of thinking from you. Like, you don't have to think as hard about some of the problems.
Right.
But keeping it on track requires a considerable amount of concentration.
You have to be actively.
You cannot do two things at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be on a call and like working through a complicated like AI problem with the AI. You need to actually focus on what it's saying, because it can be wrong.
This is what's weird. I find like Claude Code has this thing where you can use your phone and like send it things that you want to do, like coding wise, like remotely. But like,
what do you mean? Sorry.
Like, I don't know. Say I'm in an Uber going to.
Oh, you want to? It'll dig to first pass for you.
It'll start working on stuff. Like, I can send it prompts from my phone and have it using my IDE and building code for me like remotely. Cool. But I find like I need to be really focused when I'm sending those prompts in. Like, I can't just blindly.
Do you ever wonder?
Do that as kind of like off the side of my desk, or do it while I'm out of pocket.
Do you ever wonder if one of the things I think is maybe not well explained between the people who are like these power users, or like the co-founder of Anthropic or whatever, and like some of these people, is I do wonder what their like preconditioning is for when they use the AI tool. So like, for example, if he's like, I'm going to send something, I'm taking an Uber somewhere and I'm going to have it code, I don't know, something. Does he feel comfortable sending it because he's set up like the preamble,
right? Maybe.
Really to a really nth degree,
like the context, right?
Like he's really like contextually super heavy that it always knows about, so he's not as worried about it. Like,
it's possible.
This is the thing I think that I miss is, I find very frustrating. So I use ChatGPT too, and they have these projects, and it's supposed to reference project information. What the hell is the point of these things otherwise? Because it's every chat I've had about my new business is in there.
Yeah,
and then it just forgets.
Do you think this is like the thing?
Like, a human brain could do better than that. Yeah. Which I'm happy about.
Do you think though that like context and the size of the context it's able to keep is the thing that's limiting AI right now? Like, I feel like you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Like, it's got the whole code base. It's had all these conversations with me. This is how we do things. It sometimes gets it, and sometimes it just
says fuck it. It's like, I'm just gonna do a quick answer here, and you're like, don't.
No,
like, you know,
yeah.
I find it really crazy that it, like, what's interesting is I wouldn't expect a human to have the full context of everything I've said.
True.
But I would expect it because I think of it as a database, and it's not.
Yeah.
You know, it's a neural network, and it's very different, right? But I have these moments where I'm like, well, that's got to be in a database table somewhere that this is the value of it costs this much to ship this product, and it's not how it works, and I find that really a little disturbing, but also kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Anyway, but.
All right, so we kind of need to wrap up here. Can I give you my 3 takeaways, and you just give me your hot take?
Let's do it.
Okay, I'll just say it, and you say whatever pops into your mind. Okay, your spec is the new source code.
I guess.
Okay.
Well, like, it's way more complicated than that.
Yeah.
I fundamentally disagree that we know the spec accurately from the customer.
Right.
I just don't think that's what
you-
Steve Jobs say. People need to be told what they want, something like that.
Yeah.
The customer doesn't know what they want.
But, you know, like, it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be better than your competition.
Sure.
I think. Right. So I think from that perspective,
And
I
acceptable
agree.
to
I
the
agree with
customers,
that.
but
You
yeah.
know.
Okay, fine.
So the next one is review evidence, not every line.
Oof.
So that's trying to identify we're in that
You're in the gray zone. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're reviewing things,
You would know better than me on this,
okay.
but I would be.
I'm on a journey here as
Yeah.
I'm learning these things and I'm using these things. And I would say right now, I agree with that.
Okay.
Ask me again in a few months. Maybe I'll feel differently, but I think reviewing evidence, not every line, is probably good sage advice here.
What would you do personally if you didn't have AI? What did you do back in the day? Did you review every line?
Pretty much.
Because you were writing
because
every line.
well, no, I would get
Actually,
pull
you would,
requests from our developers,
Yeah.
and we would go through it. And actually, no, I got to be honest with you, I didn't look at every line. I would go through the changes, the diffs, okay,
Yeah, okay.
and see what they had done. I'd run it, I'd try it, you know, that kind of stuff.
yeah.
We usually did it actually in a dev meeting, so we were doing
Everybody
it.
was poking holes.
Everybody was
Yeah.
looking at it, which was great actually, because then I could blame everybody else if something went
Sick.
haywire. But yeah. So, anyways, like
Yeah, okay.
that's kind of where I'm landing on that.
Okay.
And my last piece is small teams win in the AI era.
Well, yeah, that's obviously true.
Like I honestly, I sit here and I'm doing right now what it would have taken 10 developers like a year, and I'm doing that in months. Okay, as one developer.
Yeah.
So I think it's finding that sweet spot, going through that journey, getting to your comfort zone, optimizing the way you're working with the AI, your context, all that sort of stuff. And then I think that's the way you get to a good place.
I am actually pretty impressed at how much you've been able to do. I mean, we'll talk about it in a few episodes, but I'm pretty impressed by it.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Any final thoughts?
That's it for this week, folks.
Nice
See ya.
way. Just no segue.
Yeah, no, I'm out. Peace.
Start it up, let's get it rolling. Big ideas, money folding. Hustle smart, dream so wild. Turn that grind into a joyride.